Or even if someone is hungry, if you see a child that's hungry and you feed that child, that's an act of generosity. But actually, even something that sounds above and beyond the call of duty like that is not really an So today I would like to talk about some of the basic precepts of the Mahayana view. What we practice here is Vajrayana Buddhism, also called Tantric Buddhism, although that word isn't used as much simply because in some years gone by there were teachings that came into this country that were more like Hinduism, that were called Tantric teachings, and they have a different connotation. And actually sometimes those concepts are misused and are associated with things that our teachings are not associated with. So we use the word Vajrayana, and Vajrayana vehicle is called the diamond vehicle. But it is also considered to be indistinguishable from the Mahayana school of Buddhism, and to be part of the Mahayana school of Buddhism. The Mahayana school of Buddhism has a certain flavor to it, a certain distinction, in that it seems to be a very predominant idea that one should accumulate meritorious activity, that one should accumulate virtuous activity. And that is based on the idea that cause and effect relationships are very exacting, that nothing that one experiences, sees, hears, touches, or even experiences within the subtlety of one's own mind, even within one's own cognition, nothing that one experiences is without cause. That according to the Buddha's teaching, all things arise from a cause, and that those causes are exacting. There is an interdependent movement, or an interdependent eventing, if you will, that tends to happen, one thing on top of another. Cause begets effect, that effect acts as future cause, that cause produces more effect, and things tend to build upon one another in something like a geometric progression. After aeons and aeons of cyclic existence, these cause and effect relationships become extremely complicated and hard to understand, especially in that the events that we see occurring within our lives right now often are not traceable. We only have the awareness of a brief period of time since the time of our birth, and even those of us that feel that we have had some past life experiences and know for certain that we were Cleopatra in our previous life, we don't know these things for sure, and even if we do have a sense of that kind of thing, we have lived innumerable times. According to the Buddhas, we have lived so many times we see occurring within our lives right now often are not traceable. We see occurring within our lives we see occurring within our lives right now often are not traceable. We only have the awareness of a brief period of time since the time of our birth, and even those of us that feel that we have had some past life experiences and know for certain that we were Cleopatra in our previous life, we don't know these things for sure, and even if we do have a sense of that kind of thing, we have lived innumerable times. According to the Buddhas, we have lived so many times that everyone we see has been our parent, our kind mother, and has given birth to us in some way. So that's not 10 times or 100 times or even 1,000 times or even 1,000,000 times. That's uncountable times for uncountable aeons. During those uncountable aeons, I'm sure we were not in a coma. I'm sure that we were producing cause and effect relationships straight on. According to the Buddha, following that logic, we have within our mind streams innumerable seeds of potential, that some of which are ripening right now. If we look at the events of our lives, we can see which ones are ripening. It's not a mystery. This is not one of the great mysteries of life. You can see how your relationships are going, how your finances are going, how your health is going, how your life in general is going, how your capacity to practice is going, how your spiritual development is going. And you can tell what seeds are ripening. If relationships are not going well in your life, it's because what's ripening right now is not a great karma. What's ripening now is has probably some cause that has been brought about by some event that you yourself engaged in some previous incarnation within the realm of relationships that was not especially virtuous. I know we don't like to think that. It's much easier to blame someone else for our suffering. But we have produced the power to change these events. Otherwise, we remain victimized. If, for instance, we have a relationship in which someone is not being kind to us, we can assume that in the past we have not been kind to someone, possibly even that very same person, most likely that very same person. And perhaps we have to purify that karma. Well, viewing this as being the case, we should adopt an attitude of generosity. We should pray for that person. We should engage in generosity. We should have kindly acts toward that person. These are the things that we can do to counteract the suffering that we are now experiencing. What happens is that it purifies our mind stream. And eventually, that purification will bleed through into our life experience. Unfortunately, it isn't always immediate. Sometimes it is, and that's a good sign. But it isn't always immediate, and we lose faith. We think that it's not doing us much good. But it does. Eventually, it will. In the same way that apple seeds always produce apple trees, in that same way, kindness always produces kindness. That's the formula. So we can look at our lives and see what's ripening. We should think of these karmic potentials as just that, karmic potentials that exist within our mind stream like seeds. Some have ripened and have borne fruit. And our reaction to these has gone on to produce more causes, more seeds within the mind stream. Every reaction that we have, every thought that we think, acts as a future seed within our mind streams. In some ways that's frightening, isn't it? Think about the unstable reactions that we have to life experiences. The anger, the resentment, the feeling of being victimized, the crazy instability that we have when something doesn't go our way, the crazy obscurations that we create within our mind, trying to be right or trying to be noticed or trying to be approved of. These things do produce future causes. But again, the blessing of knowing that is that you don't have to go around acting and reacting blindly. You can take yourself in hand. You can practice by beginning to concentrate on generosity. Concentrate on contemplating these teachings to the degree that you become courageously involved in producing those seeds that give good results. And we'll talk about what those seeds are in a moment. But as I say, these cause and effect relationships exist within our mind stream as seed potential, depending on the catalyst that we are experiencing right now and our reaction to that catalyst. That's the biggie, our reaction. That is our future life. You can look at the reaction in your mind right now and tell what your future life is going to be like. Think about it. In that way, you don't need a fortune teller. You're not out of control. You don't have to go to a fortune teller and say, will I be happy later? Look at your mind. You can tell whether you're going to be happy later. Look at what you are producing. You also then have the opportunity to take yourself in hand and produce what brings happiness. But we also have within our mind stream latent seeds. Again, if we have lived since time out of mind in endless lifetimes, we have endless latent seeds, and they're all potent. How will these things ripen, and how should we view ourselves? There is an analogy that I've used before that I think is a very good one. It's kind of disgusting, so I hope you'll bear with me. Let's think of our mind streams, and this is not a put down, this is just an analogy. Let's think of our mind streams as a big steaming pot of garbage soup. Because we have a lot of mixed stuff in there. I mean, even if you look in your garbage right now, there's probably some good stuff in there. There's probably some pieces of fruit. There's probably what was perfectly good food, whatever's left over of it. And there's probably some nasty stuff in there too, wouldn't you say? Well, let's think of our mind streams that way. It's pretty mixed up. You have some good stuff in there, and you have some pretty nasty stuff in there. Well, let's say we cook up a nice pot of garbage soup. Yum, yum. Mix it up real good. Dredge all the stuff up from the bottom. Yum, yum, yum. Mix it up real good. And then we decide we're going to let it marinate. So we let it marinate, and we let it sit there. And the first day, we look at our garbage soup, and it's really stinking. So things are not so good. The next day, we look at we're letting it marinate for a while now, you understand. Next day, we look at our garbage soup, and it's stinking so bad you can't believe it. Well, I don't have to get into this with any depth, but it takes about 3 weeks for the flavor and the aroma to really reach you. And then it comes to a peak, and it begins to change in such a way that things are happening in that soup pretty constantly. And let's say the first day that this change begins to happen, this new change begins to happen, on top of the soup you notice that there are like fuzzy purple things and fuzzy green things, and you think, interesting pattern, but a little too psychedelic for me. I think I'll check it tomorrow. And then the next day you look at it and little red polka dots are coming out on it, and you think, even better. So the next day you keep checking it, and the next day you keep checking it, and every day there's some interesting phenomena that's happening to your soup, until one day, somewhere down the road, it's all covered with white fuzz, and it looks pure and clean, and you think, gee, aren't things great? Well, that's kind of how we are right now. We look at ourselves, and we're looking at this pure white fuzz, and we're thinking, aren't we great? What we don't realize is that in the pot is still the rest of the soup, and all you have to do is stir it up a little bit. Now, the funny thing about life is that it always stirs it up a little bit. You're not going to get to sit there with your white stuff for very long. And even if you just left alone and nothing stirred it up, let's say you were in a coma. Eventually, you would get back to it, and it wouldn't be white anymore, because that's the nature of the thing. It's impermanent. It just keeps changing. So to look at your life right now and think, things are pretty good, I guess I'm okay, is a little immature. You can look and see what's ripening right now. And the best way to think about that is to think, let me take advantage of it. If I have the time to practice and the brains to do so, if I have the opportunity and I have the teaching at my disposal, why don't I just do it? If I have enough spaciousness in my mind to meditate, why don't I start now? Things are looking pretty white. Might as well get busy. But to think that there's nothing to handle or to think that you can just coast on that is stupid. Because like the pot of garbage soup, eventually something will ripen and it won't be so terrific. Or life will stir you up. You've seen it happen to other people and you know it's happened to you too. Things can be looking pretty white for a while, nice and pure and white and fuzzy, and then all of a sudden something happens and everything changes. It could be something as simple as PMS, or something as difficult as some traumatic life change that seems to ripen out of the blue. You know that's true. Or it could be something gradual, like the approaching of old age or some sickness. These things are constantly stirring up the pot, and they all have to do with us. They're not separate from us. So we have to realize that within that pot is a lot of potential. Anything could happen. There's a lot of karmic potential within our mind streams. The teachings say that we have the karma to reach enlightenment. If we're hearing these teachings, that is most certainly true. If we're hearing the concept of enlightenment or the word enlightenment or even the word Buddha, these things are true. The potency is there. Don't wait around for someone to tell you you have the karma to practice. If you're here and you're hearing this, you have it. Don't wait for these words. On the other hand, you also have the karma to be reborn in this, you have it. Don't wait for these words. On the other hand, you also have the karma to be reborn in any one of the 6 realms of cyclic existence. You have the karma for things to change on you immediately. Anything could ripen. Anything could ripen. You could have the karma to practice right now, and some terrible disaster could happen in your life that prevents you from practicing. On the other hand, you may have the karma to practice right now, and something may ripen in such a way that it's just easy street for you to do so. Cyclic existence is constantly changing, just like that pot of garbage soup. You can't go by what it looks like. And the teachings are also that we, who look so snowy white right now, have the karma to be reborn in a hell realm as well. Don't you think that's true? Well, look at your mind. Haven't you experienced intense hatred and intense anger? Haven't you had nightmares? What do you think that is? Whatever can produce that kind of activity in you can also be the seed that produces rebirth in a hell realm. We have awesome potency. And it's kind of like what they call the one-armed bandit machine in Las Vegas. You pull the lever down and whatever comes up, comes up. Could be 3 lemons, could be 3 cherries, and it could be 3 different things entirely. What do we do about this? Do we feel shaky? No, because it's always been the case. And before we didn't know this. I mean, if you think about it, we've been walking through a room with the lights turned off. A room that's very cluttered. Think about it, we've been walking through a room with the lights turned off. A room that's very cluttered and very filled with obstacles. Turning on the lights, we have a way to step over the obstacles, and we have a way to maneuver. And that's important. We have a way to step over the obstacles, and we have a way to maneuver. And that's important, and that's a potent thing. Now, we can institute the causes that will most certainly ripen all of our best potential quickly. And we can institute the causes that transform previous negative karma. And we can institute the causes that produce awesome virtue within our mind streams. Knowing that these things are the case, we also know that we have this potency if we act intelligently. For instance, let's say you do have a mixed bag of tricks, and let's say that you do have the ability to practice and the ability to achieve enlightenment, and at the same time you also have the ability to lose it completely. And that's you I'm talking to, every one of you. The intelligent thing to do then is to begin to ripen those seeds of previous virtue that you have and to increase them, to plant more seeds of virtue in your mind stream. You can do that. If you produce virtuous activity, virtue will continue to ripen and more virtue will be present within your mind stream. How does one do that? According to the Mahayana tradition, a primary way to do that is through acts of generosity. So a primary focus in the Mahayana tradition is to rely on virtuous activity to move closer to enlightenment. And generosity is a very, very well practiced and well known and very profound way to do that. There are different levels of generosity. The ordinary generosity that we have when someone says to you, "Can I borrow $1?" and you say, "Sure, here it is." That's something. Or even if someone is hungry, if you see a child that's hungry and you feed that child, that's an act of generosity. But actually, even something that sounds above and beyond the call of duty like that is not really an extraordinary act of generosity. It's an ordinary act of generosity. In that, if you feed that person, all you will really do for them is to end their hunger. If you really want to help them, after you feed them, teach them some Dharma. Give them the opportunity to practice so that they can produce the causes by which they will never be hungry again. Hunger is a result of karma too, you know. So according to these teachings, in that way, extraordinary generosity is the practice of Dharma, and when one becomes competent to do so, but not before, the teaching of Dharma to others. In the meantime, one can become instrumental in propagating the Dharma, because the Dharma is a method by which one achieves enlightenment, which is the end of all suffering. It is then a great virtue to be involved in that. Now, when I made that caution that one should wait until one is competent to teach Dharma, because the reason why I mention that is because there is a flip side that we should all be careful and really listen to very carefully, and that is if one is not qualified to teach Dharma, and one tries to represent oneself as capable of leading someone to enlightenment, if one has themselves not achieved much realization or not learned the practices well enough to really teach them, and one tries to do that, represents oneself as able to teach those teachings, then actually that is a tremendous non-virtue, in that it will certainly, according to the Buddhist teaching, certainly produce rebirth in a lower. Certainly, according to the Buddhist teaching, certainly produce rebirth in a lower realm, because you're misleading the person that you're trying to help. So one should be absolutely qualified, either by one's own realization or through having learned Dharma so well that one can teach it to another. One also achieves extraordinary merit by making offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, outward, inward, and secret offerings. Outward offerings can be as simple as the offering of a candle or a butter lamp, or the offering of some fruit or some money or something on an altar. To make an offering such as that, on our altars you'll see many offerings, especially in the altar in there. These are ordinary people that just come and prepare these offerings, and they bring them and put them on the altar. This is an extraordinary virtue, in that it is a clear connection with and an indication that one wishes to achieve enlightenment. to achieve enlightenment. To practice meditation, and particularly that kind of meditation that is geared to produce enlightenment, those kinds of meditation that are taught by the enlightened ones. This kind of meditation, this kind of practice produces extraordinary virtue. And it's very different from the ordinary activity that we engage in, because what would we be doing if we weren't meditating? We would be self-absorbed. We would be continuing to do what we did before that produced pretty iffy circumstances. We would be concentrating on the ego. So meditation produces tremendous virtue. Contemplation produces tremendous virtue. Contemplating, that is, the Buddha's teaching, contemplating those cause and effect relationships that bring about the positive result. Contemplating the teachings, this is a tremendous virtue. Studying the teachings that bring about good result. This is a tremendous virtue. Visualization, that is to say, the visualization practices that we learn here, when one visualizes oneself as a pure, enlightened form, such as a meditational deity, and as that enlightened form acts in a compassionate way, through the effort to be of benefit to others. Supporting the Dharma is an extremely generous thing to do. Recitation, that is the recitation of mantra, is an extremely virtuous thing to do. Supporting someone else who practices Dharma is an extremely virtuous thing to do. Contributing in any way to the propagation of the teaching, to making the teaching more widespread, is an extremely virtuous thing to do. These kinds of acts are the acts that produce good result. If you decide that you want to practice, you should begin to do these as consistently and with as much potency as possible. As consistently and with as much potency as possible. And you should start as possible. And you should start now. For instance, when someone says to me, I want to be a student, before I really give them any solid teaching at all, before I form that kind of relationship with them in any way, before I even let them take preliminary practice, I usually require of them that they recite thousands, actually, of 7-line prayers, prayers to Guru Rinpoche, the prayer that is on page 1 in your opening prayers book. And I give them a practice that is a context in which to do that. The reason why I ask them to do that is because the recitation of that prayer is extremely virtuous. And having recited many repetitions of that prayer with devotion, with faith, and with visualization, making offerings, as one does when one visualizes that practice that is the context in which that prayer is given. That is the context in which that prayer is given. One then produces the meritorious seeds that will continue to fortify one's practice and will ensure that reversed karma does not ripen, so that you can continue. Otherwise, it's entirely possible that you may have the intention to practice, but not be able to. Why does that happen? Why do we find the path and then lose it? Or why do we find the path and then not fully become involved in it? Or why do we have these unfortunate results? Really, it all boils down to a lack of ripening virtuous activity within our mind streams. We need more merit. We need to plant the seeds of meritorious activity. And so most of the time when people come to me and they say, gee, I have this problem with my practice and I have that problem with my practice, to satisfy their minds I might say, we'll do this and this and this and this. Say, we'll do this and this and this and this. And I might tell them something that they can do, some practice they can do, or that they should persevere, or something that they can do, some practice they can do, or that they should persevere, or that they should relax about it, or something like that. Because people's minds do need to be satisfied. But what I also tell them, and I say it again and again and again, is to produce virtuous activity. Through generosity, through meditation, through practice, through visualization, through making offerings, through whatever of these methods, through teaching, through, no, not teaching yet, we'll wait on that, okay? Through contemplating, through sponsoring, these things. One can engage in these in such a way as to purify the mind stream. Then one's capability for practice will increase. Then one's capability for practice will increase tremendously. That is most assuredly the case. So you have to decide then at this point what result you wish to have. Make no mistake about it. If you're not getting the result that you want, it's because you're not producing the causes. Or because there are hidden causes within your mind stream and you need to counteract them through producing most excellent, meritorious activity. But make no mistake about it, you have that power. You have that power. That power. You have that power. You can absolutely be certain that that is the case. If Lord Buddha himself was once an ordinary sentient being and became the Buddha, if all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were themselves ordinary sentient beings and became what they are now, then so can and will you eventually. What is in question is how thoroughly and with what potency and when you will begin to enact the auspicious causes. When will you begin to plant the auspicious seeds? When will you begin to take hold of yourself and turn your life around to make it a vehicle or a basket for such things, so that these extraordinary results can be produced? There is a method, and there's no secret about it. People come to classes like this because they want to hear the secrets of the universe. People come to classes like this because they want to hear the secrets of the universe. Tell me the biggie. Tell me the straight dope. Let me hear it. Lay it on me. But there aren't any real secrets. It's very simple. In your nature, you are the very Buddha. But you do not realize that nature. In fact, you have never tasted it, simply because you are preoccupied in nature. In fact, you have never tasted it, simply because you are preoccupied and fixated on the belief in your own ego. Belief in your own ego and the involvement in that fixation. Due to that, we produce mixed causes, some virtue and some non-virtue, and we continue, therefore, on the wheel of cyclic existence. If you stop that and produce only virtuous causes, if you take yourself in hand and follow the instructions that I've just told you, and that were given by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you will produce the result of enlightenment. And you will awaken to what has always been your own primordial wisdom nature. It's that simple. Of course, the method becomes complicated. I mean, when you hear about it, you have to learn sadhana practice, and maybe you're going to do some preliminary practice, and the practices become very complicated, but these are methods. The bottom line is, it can be done. There's no secret. No one's a victim. The bottom line is, it can be done. There's no secret. No one's a victim, and no one gets left out. It's up to you. I've said this how many times on Sunday morning, so that you can really hear it. The ball is in your court. What are you going to do with it? If you want to continue and to learn how to meditate, how to contemplate, if you want to hear the teachings and learn them, and learn them. If you want to begin to institute these causes, then continue here and continue to become more involved. Then continue here and continue to become more involved. Ask around, find out how you can become more involved. Come see me. These are the ways. And I can try to help you in what little way I can. So take advantage of this opportunity if you wish to produce the auspicious result. And so thank you very much for coming today, and I hope that you've enjoyed the teaching. But remember, I say this every week, and I'm going to keep on saying it. If you came to this teaching and were entertained and you leave it at that, then all you had was a brief moment of entertainment. But if you use the teaching and take it away with you and keep it with you and moment of entertainment. But if you use the teaching and take it away with you and keep it with you and formalize it into something that is part of your life, then you have gained something and you have not wasted your time, and neither have I. So please do that. What counts is what you do.
Thank you so very much for just hanging in there with all of that. That was pretty intense. And I hope that we can make that better so that I can re-upload this and you'll be able to actually watch it steadily. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us for all of these teachings. We hope that if you are in the area, you can come by KPC anytime. We are open every day from dawn to dusk outside and inside from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The prayer room is open. We're still struggling with, permitting and that for the rest of the building, but as we move forward, we're hopeful that we'll have some more space. But meanwhile, we do have lots of things going on. In fact, if you want to shift from YouTube to Zoom, we have Khenpo Tenzin Karze will be teaching in about 40 minutes on Zoom or live in person. He'll teach some meditation. short teaching, some Q&A, and a very, very short Shinrezi practice for people of all ages. We welcome you to come and just get a taste of, just what's going on. If you've never been here, it's a great way to sort of sample. It's like coming to a small buffet. So I hope you enjoy it, and you will really love Khenpo Tenzin Karsay. He is really, he's got a heart bigger than a mountain, and his teaching is just extraordinary. So, please come anytime you can, online or in person. If you go to the calendar on tara.org, that would be scrolling just to the bottom of the first page, and you'll see something that says webcasts and calendar, something like that. Just click on the calendar, and that will give you the codes to get online on the Zoom channel, and everything that you need. Hang on, I'll just put the Zoom link in the chat since Martha just asked for that. And yeah, come on by. We're happy to have you. So great. I hope that helps you get there. And yeah, anytime that you need to, you can, let me see. Do I have this thing here? This is my little spiel about, how to get to, and I might not have changed that since we changed the calendar. We've changed the pujas to 7 p.m., the longer pujas. So every night at 7 p.m., we have a practice on that same Zoom channel. And it will be either Ratnalingpa, Vajrakalaya, or more often Riggs and Dupa, which is a Guru Rinpoche practice, and Gurkukma, Vajrakalaya Gurkukma, which is a condensed practice of Vajrakalaya. So all of these practices are designed to eliminate obstacles and to make your practices easier and better. So drop by at 7. They are chanted in Tibetan, but basically we post the link there on that Zoom channel, and you can and we post a link to the practice so that you can open it up on your computer and have it to follow along. We invite you to join us every evening, 7 p.m. Jetsunma changed those to 7, so we're still scrambling to change the rest of our schedules, because she said that right around this time we really needed potent practices, and that was the best time. So here we are. So we invite you to join us. Those are our silk offering ceremonies. So come by and or in person or online or anywhere, anyhow. And when you have time and it's nice weather, come and walk the land and see the animals, see the koi ponds. They're just beautiful. Jetsunma's put a lot of work into these koi, and they're pretty special fish, and I don't even know how to describe them to you. But at some point, I'm sure you'll hear her description, or if somebody will give it to you. But they're all wonderful, wonderful animals. We just got some new baby chicks. See if we can help the egg situation in the country. So come along, and when we have eggs, you can buy them here from, eggs raised by laid by Jetsunma's chickens. Pretty special. Anyway, come. So glad to see you online, and come back soon. We'll be here Sunday morning, same time, same bat channel, and same time, Sundays at 10. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful week. Take care.